On the surface, Disney looks like a movie company with parks attached. I would argue the reverse. The films are marketing with occasional windfalls. The parks are industrial cash machines dressed in nostalgia, with better margins, steadier demand, and far more ways to charge the customer twice. When investors argue about whether a Pixar sequel underperformed or Marvel lost altitude, I understand the concern. It matters culturally. I care more about hotel occupancy in Orlando, per cap spending in Anaheim, and whether management can raise prices without slowing the turnstiles. That is where operating leverage lives. I have sat in enough capital allocation meetings to know the glamorous asset often gets too much credit. In Disney's case, the public mythology runs through the studio lot. The economic engine runs through concrete, labor scheduling, food service, lightning lane pricing, vacation packages, and $20 turkey legs. Charming business, ruthless too. To understand this, you have to separate brand creation from profit capture. Disney was built as a character and story company, yes. Walt Disney's genius was intellectual property married to distribution. First theatrical shorts, then animated features, television, licensing, and eventually physical destinations where fantasy could be monetized at industrial scale. Disneyland opened in 1955, a bold piece of asset creation disguised as entertainment. Walt financed part of it through television, which was clever for the period. He turned media exposure into traffic for a fixed asset. That combination became the template. Stories create demand. Real estate and operations convert that demand into durable cash. Disney's reporting has shown the pattern in plain view for anyone patient enough to read the segment tables. Studios swing. One year they mint money, another year they absorb write-downs and marketing costs. Experiences, especially parks and resorts, tend to produce higher operating income because the economics are layered and the consumer keeps paying after the initial decision. Before the pandemic, the parks, experiences, and products segment frequently generated operating income that overshadowed the studio business. In fiscal 2019, Disney's parks segment produced over $6.7 billion in operating income. Studio entertainment was roughly half that. One side sold tickets to stories, the other sold airfare-adjacent vacations with captive spending. That difference begins with unit economics. A movie is a high-risk launch. You commit substantial production capital up front, then spend heavily again on marketing, and hope opening weekend validates the thesis. A park guest arrives already converted. The family has paid for transport, hotel, food, merchandise, line skipping, photographs, and often returns. Inside a theme park, Disney controls the full wallet with almost indecent efficiency. Admission is only the first swipe. Then come resort stays, beverages, souvenirs, dining reservations, parking, premium events, and character experiences. It is vertical integration with sunscreen. I say that admiringly. Very few companies execute it that cleanly. Movies, by contrast, face brutal economics even when they work. Box office is shared with theaters. Marketing expenses can approach or exceed $100 million on major releases. Revenue arrives in bursts and decays quickly. A hit can be enormous. Of course, the trouble is that annual planning built on hits usually ends with executives explaining variance. The press often frames Disney through opening weekends, Rotten Tomatoes scores, and franchise fatigue. Boards should care more about replacement cycles and capacity management. Disney can refurbish a ride, retheme a land, open a hotel tower, and lift guest spending without needing every creative bet to become frozen. Operators sleep better with levers like that. Pricing power tells the story with unusual clarity. Disney has raised ticket prices for years, often faster than inflation, and demand has generally held. The company introduced Genie Plus and Lightning Lane after retiring the old FastPass system, effectively charging for time itself. If customers will pay to wait less inside an already expensive park, the moat is wider than most analysts admit. Then there is the accounting quality of the revenue. Park income is supported by reservations, occupancy planning, dynamic pricing, food and beverage sales, and staffing models that management can tune week by week. Studio income depends on whether audiences care this month. One business resembles operations. The other resembles repeated venture capital with better trailers. I saw a version of this in 1998. when I was studying Marriott's economics against flashier consumer brands. Wall Street loved visible glamour and underappreciated systems that monetized customer habits. Marriott's genius was repeatability: rooms, loyalty, yield management, conventions, food service. Disney's parks follow similar logic, though with far better costumes and much longer lines. A closer parallel sits with Las Vegas after the 1990s transformation. Companies like MGM discovered that the casino floor was only part of the machine. The larger profit pool came from rooms, restaurants, retail, conventions, and premium experiences wrapped inside a destination. Disney operates the family-safe version. Different audience, same logic. Same appetite for captive spend. I would also point to Starbucks in the 2000s, especially after Howard Schultz returned in 2008. Investors talked brand and atmosphere. The real strength was frequency, pricing, throughput, and attachment sales. Once a company can make a customer routine feel personal, margins improve quietly. Disney does something similar with pilgrimage. Families call it memory. Finance calls it yield. When successful, often serves the parks rather than outranking them. Cars became merchandise and attractions. Frozen became songs, dresses, cruises, and queue lines. Avatar found a second life in Pandora at Animal Kingdom. The film starts the conversation. The park extends the billing relationship over years, sometimes generations. That is why management tolerates volatility in the studio portfolio more than outside observers expect. A film slate can disappoint and the enterprise still perform if park demand remains resilient. I have watched boards choose to protect the platform over the prestige division many times. Quietly, headlines flatter the artists. Cash flow keeps the dividend discussion civilized. There is a cautionary side. Parks are capital-intensive and operationally unforgiving. Weather, geopolitical shocks, and recessions do intrude. The pandemic proved that brutally when Disney's parks were shut and the income vanished. Still, once reopened, the segment recovered with impressive speed because the underlying demand reservoir had not been destroyed. So my verdict is plain. Disney's movies are essential because they refresh the brand, recruit the next generation, and justify pricing. Their strategic role is enormous. Their financial role is less sovereign than many assume. The parks hold the stronger economics because they combine scarcity, habit, and total wallet capture inside a controlled environment. The pattern I carry from this is old and stubborn. The glamorous product creates attention while the infrastructure captures profit. Disney fits that mold almost perfectly. The screen builds the dream. The gate, the hotel, and the wristband collect the cash. Have you seen this pattern in another company? Name it.